Hello, magical, raw, and radiant tribe. Today's episode, I am sharing with you a empowering conversation that I had as a guest on my friend Marsha VanW's podcast, Own Your Choices, Own Your Life. A little bit of background about Marsha is that she is a 6-time best-selling author. In her podcast, in her stories, in her lessons, she shares how, as a parent, she's dealt with teen substance abuse that literally tore her family unit apart. Marsha has been published 7 times, and she is on a mission to continue to help women and men speak, share, and publish their stories. So in this episode that I have this beautiful organic conversation with Marsha, I share the science behind breathwork, the steps and the mechanics of breathing, and the power of breathwork and understanding your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. And also I share how this work can improve and impact your health. There is so much wisdom and so much magic in this episode, and it is truly an opportunity for Marsha and I to have this beautiful conversation about healing and health. So enjoy the episode, enjoy the show. Go follow Marsha on Own Your Choices, Own Your Life. And I look forward to receiving your comments, your feedback, and inviting you to share this episode, share all the episodes of Raw and Radiant when you binge listen, because it helps me to get my story. It helps me to get my mission and my passion out into the world, and it helps the podcast to grow. So until next time, enjoy this episode. Welcome to Raw and Radiant, the podcast that ignites your spirit and empowers your soul. Are you ready to embark on a transformative journey? Here we give other women permission to embrace their truth, to find the courage to choose themselves first. Because guess what? You are not alone. Join us in this massive journey of empowerment and courage. Together we'll illuminate your inner spark, empowering you to embrace the radiant light within and show you how magical you are. It's time to unleash your potential and make a difference in this world. Are you ready to step into the raw and radiant version of you?
Welcome to the show today, Victoria. I'm thrilled to have you here.
Thank you, Marsha. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, so we have been in the online space, I think over the last 6 months, really. I don't know if I knew you much before the mastermind that we were both a part of with our good friend, Megan. Hello, if you're listening. And I know then we got to meet in person in Sedona, and I was just taken away by your, I don't know, you just such a beautiful, calm energy and presence. And then you took us through a breathwork session, which was incredible. So I knew I wanted to be able to bring you on here to share a little bit of your backstory, because there's also the other piece that I think I loved is that we're in the same age bracket. I just think
That's the first thing that I brought into the space in the mastermind. I'm like, yay, thank God there's someone in my age demographics.
I know that sounds so silly if you're listening, but trust me, in the online space, it's really only been in the last year or so that I'm seeing more and more women in their 50s and doing like in this space. So I love it, and I'm so grateful that we connected.
Yeah, I'm so grateful too. And thank you, Megan. If you are listening, thank you for bringing us together in that beautiful space. I'm like so transformed from these past 6 months, and especially the retreat that we got to attend for a week in Sedona. That was life-changing. And thank you for the reflection, Marsha, of the space that I was able to hold for you in the breathwork session. And like if I could just like transmute how that room looked into my there really isn't any words that I can put to the energy of that room that I was able to facilitate for. Like it was just this beautiful temple and this sacred space, and I was able to just be this conduit of safety for y'all to go through this magical experience. And each one of you had such transformative, different experiences. And that is what I recognize the power of breathwork. It's given me full body goosebumps right now, just to know and recognize. I led an online session yesterday, and last week she was in a completely different space than she was this week. And so it's really coming back to there's so much wisdom and power in our breath that we get to move through life in this beautiful, magical way.
So wisdom and power in our breath. That one just landed for me when you said that. What does that mean? Wisdom and power in our breath? Because so first off, for anybody listening, we were literally in a small temple. I don't know how else to describe that space. And I think it's safe to say, I mean, I was very immersed in my own breathwork experience, but I do believe that everybody had a very different visceral experience. And that is what can come from breathwork. So I do want to talk a little bit about breathwork. And then you said wisdom. And what was the other word you just said?
There's wisdom and magic in our breath. There's just so much. So what that means for me, Marsha, is wow, we live this life on this earthly plane in this human meat suit, what I call it, right? Like our souls in this meat suit. And by recognizing how we are breathing and how we are moving through day to day, like we can get stuck in that angst and breathe from our chest and our fight or flight in that sympathetic nervous system. And maybe somebody cut us off on in the traffic, or maybe we just had some anxiety, something happened. And if we just take a pause and feel how we're breathing, even if we're holding our breath. I had someone reach out to me. I'm like, wow, I recognize that I hold my breath a lot. And so that wisdom is within the breath in that sacred pause. And when we breathe in this 3-part conscious connected breathing pattern that I facilitate, is that whatever your body wants to release at that time, at that moment, is what will be released. Your body is so innately wise. And that's what I call the magic. And the wisdom is within the breath. It's like recognizing, am I breathing from my diaphragm? Am I breathing from that parasympathetic nervous system, that calm? And knowing that we have the power to take a step back, take a pause, and to change our nervous system regulation and be able to come at the situation in a different way.
Okay, I love that you're sharing this because I do want to go here because I want to share how, like, what breath work can do for the body. So, when you talk about, for people who are listening, can you explain sympathetic and parasympathetic systems, please?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love this question. It's the nerdy part of me that comes out and loves to talk about it. So our sympathetic nervous system is our fight or flight. It's when there's a bear and we need to run and there's that angst. It's where our cortisol level increases and we need to get the F out of the way, right? Our sympathetic nerve or parasympathetic nervous system is when we breathe from our diaphragm, when we breathe from our belly. It's our calm, it's our relaxation. It's also known as our digestive, where our body gets to digest. And it's just this state of, I almost want to say, bliss. And also it's just that peace when you can sit in that stillness and that pause. And so throughout our day, throughout our life, we can be in this fight or flight. Our body can only stay in that fight or flight for so long. And then it comes to this visceral reaction where our body is just like clenched. If you could see me right now, like I'm just clenched in this ball. And it's really, really hard to live from that space. But a lot of us do. And so to redirect our thoughts, redirect our mental chatter in our brain and tap into the breath, then we can live from that calm and that peace and really come from a place of response rather than that fight or flight where we're reactive.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
There was something else that hit when we were doing one of the exercises, and I understand sympathetic and parasympathetic. Consciously, I understand them. I also am learning to recognize when I am in one or the other, and when, like, especially when I don't need to be. It's like there is no
Mhm.
bear. There's no bear, Marsha. Like, why is your body acting this way? And it's so interesting to me because then I see the ripple that I might not notice it in my breath, but I notice it in my digestive system. Then I notice it in my sleep. Then I notice it. And it's like the ripple. All of a sudden, it might be a couple days later. I'm like, oh, right. I still am this knot. And the other thing that came up for me that was such a real life example is when we were doing a journaling exercise. It was uncomfortable. It was like, it was early on in the week, really uncomfortable things that we were doing. And I remember Meg saying, pay attention to your breath. And I'm like, oh, what breath? I'm not breathing. I'm not breathing.
Exactly.
Like, it
Uh-huh.
was amazing how I recognize that when I'm talking about something difficult, when I'm journaling about something difficult, my system like clamps right up without me even realizing it. So subconsciously seeing how powerful that breath is, and we don't even realize what's happening.
Right, right. Like even right now, like recording this episode, like I have a little bit of like, oh my gosh, am I saying the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? And my internal breath, my internal system is like, and this I'm kind of holding my breath.
Mhm.
But what's so beautiful for me is I recognize I'll put my hand on my stomach, on my belly, and I'll just relax my shoulders, maybe close my eyes, breathe in and out through my nose. When we're in that fight or flight, we tend to breathe from our mouth too, if you ever notice. And that breath either is really short and shallow in the chest, or it is that clenching and that holding and that grasping. So if you can create maybe that visceral response in your belly, and just take that long, slow inhale in through the nose and out through the nose. And it's just like even sometimes a few rounds, 3 or 4 rounds of through your nose to a count of 4 and out through your nose to a count of 7.
Yeah, I'm already doing it. So, I'm sorry, I just have to remember I'm doing a podcast right now because I literally, I'm like, oh wow, I need this. This is awesome. This is so that was my question I want to share with people who are listening and going, wait, I probably never really even paid attention to my breath, which I know some people don't do. And until you're in a space, like a version of me from probably 3 or 4 years ago would be rolling her eyes right now, going, you're talking about what? Like just breathe, just do it. And so somebody who is listening, what is one of the fastest ways that they can create that change to recognize what they're doing with their breath?
Yeah, I think it's just like what I just said is just to put that tactile response onto your stomach, your
Mhm.
hand onto your stomach so you can sense and get that. I'm a visual learner and also a tactile learner. So, how do you learn best? How do you feel best? And just pause for a moment. I have people that go into their closet and just take a 5-minute break and really do that 4 in, 7 out. And the longer you exhale on the out, the calmer your nervous system becomes. And it just make sure that you're doing it through your nose because there is such a regulation that happens through that nasal breathing.
Okay, that's cool. I did not know that. The other question I have for you in this is that it's always a surprise how people breathe in the opposite way that they should. So,
Mm.
right. So when you say put your hand on your, and I mean, if you're listening to this, please, please, please listen to this because you might be thinking you're breathing and you're
Yeah.
actually going in a response that is much more about your fight or flight system. So if my hand is in my belly, what is the very first thing that should happen when I breathe? I think this is really valuable because you and I
Yeah.
talked about this, but I don't think people realize. And one of the things I used to do with my own clients is like, where do we start breathing? And they put their hand on their stomach, on their diaphragm area, and it did the complete opposite of what it should do. So can you explain that?
Yeah. Yeah. I want to go back to when I was a personal trainer and recognizing that as a personal trainer, like we are taught, especially as women, we stand up straight, nice and tall and pull our belly in and like everything is like tightened from the stomach, right? And then I learned as I was running, because I also have a long line of marathons in my background. I learned that when I can relax my stomach, when I can allow my belly button to be pushed out on the inhale, so it's like completely opposite of what we have been taught, especially as women. So when you're inhaling through your nose, your belly button is pressing away from you. And then when you're exhaling, that's when the reverse direction happens. That belly button comes into the spine.
I love that you did that. Thank you. Because I mean, it's shocking how many people don't
Mhm.
do it, but it's also a reminder that's where that comes from because you take a
Yeah.
picture, you suck it in. You suck
Yeah.
it in is what you do.
Mhm.
And then,
Yeah.
I often say if you think of your lungs as balloons, they're quite big. And if you're always doing that, you're literally using just like this top little third of your volume. You're not even accessing what else is available. Plus, we're creating this disconnect in our body of what
Absolutely.
is moving
I like to see the diaphragm as like an umbrella, when you have your umbrella closed, right? And then you unvelcro it to open it up, and then it kind of springs to a half life or a quarter life.
Mhm.
Most people, when we're breathing from our chest, that's all the diaphragm is doing, is just springing into that quarter life. When you can inflate that or press that umbrella to its full expansion, that's when we get to utilize the beautiful organs, the diaphragm that we have within there to take that full enriching breath. And that's so beautiful also to see this visceral, that umbrella is completely open. You're super oxygenating all the cells within your body too, so it's getting all this vital life force energy that it needs and that it desires. Your body, that's where it becomes so innately wise.
Oh, okay. I love this explanation. So when we did this in Sedona, and I've done lots of breathwork sessions, I shared with you afterwards that one of the things that I felt like I've done breathwork sessions where you work on trying to get to a longer hold.
Mm.
And every time I've done them, I have gotten, and I can do it because of course I'm a generator and I'm like, of course I can do it.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Mark it off the list. I did it.
but I was always in a space of contraction. When I did this long breath hold with you, it felt easy and light. It felt like, oh my gosh, like I actually felt like I was like levitating. I don't know how else to describe it. I did.
Yeah.
And I held it for longer. And there were times where you were like, okay, now release it. I'm like, I feel good though. Like I felt good. So this is such an interesting, I just want to have you talk a little bit about what breath work you do, why it's different
Mm.
from what others do.
Yeah, breathwork has been around for thousands of years. I mean, there's yoga in the yoga tradition, there's pranayama, there's lots of different variations. The one that really has resonated with me, that has created such a deep life-changing transformation for me, is a three-part conscious connected breathing pattern. So it's all done how I hold this space, and it's very important to me to hold such a safe space because that's when our nervous system feels comfortable to relax, right? And so I create this safe container, whether it's in person or online, that you are safe. And I bring about affirmations. You're lying down, and I bring you into this meditation of connecting to your body, connecting to the earth beneath you, allowing you to be held by the earth, right? And then through the music, is when I create this beautiful peak experience with this three-part conscious connected breathing pattern. It's all done in and out through the mouth. And I know we've been talking about breathing through the nose, and now I'm talking about breathing through the mouth. But what that's doing is it's actually creating the sacral in the base of your spine at your tailbone. You have what's called a sacral pump. And so breathing in this fashion, you're creating this pump in your spine to release fluid into the brain, into the pineal gland, which is releasing hormones. So that's the sciencey part of it. And so in this three-part breath, you are really oxygenating all the cells within your body. And as the music goes along, I invite in these breath holds, and it's really, really powerful to witness. I'll bring in maybe 3 or 4 breath holds within a session, a 45-minute session. And the first one, maybe you get in that monkey mind and you're not able to hold your breath. Oh my gosh, the monkey mind says, I got to breathe, I got to breathe. Okay, that's fine. But as you go further and further into this experience and you're feeling the richness of the oxygen in your body, you're able to hold that breath longer. And like you said, like the last breath hold, like I'm pretty sure you held your breath for a 2 or 3 minute song. Like that's what's powerful. And then I like purposely knocking you. I'm like, come back,
No,
come
she,
back.
she had to. I'm serious. If you're listening to this, like I know I knew it was long, but I didn't know how long it was. And
Yeah,
it didn't feel constricted. That's what felt so different for me. It felt light and easy. And I felt like I could feel the oxygen like from head to toe. I was like, oh, I feel alive. Like my body feels alive. And
yeah,
that was such a cool experience. And that's why I wanted you to be able to explain that because I've done tons of breath work
yeah,
experiences. Nothing was even remotely close to that.
yeah. And what I want to say too, Marsha, is that on that final breath hold that I offer too, like maybe somebody listening to the show is, well, I'm scared that maybe I won't breathe again. Your body, come back to the wisdom of your body. Your body will breathe, your body will breathe. Like, there's no death involved.
No.
It's simply your body knows when it needs to do what it needs to do.
It does. The body is brilliant. Your subconscious mind will never let you do something that's against your own moral values. And I also want to like just paraphrase that. I mean, I could probably do that session and have a different experience every single time, right? Because
Exactly.
this
Yeah.
is like I was very immersed in an environment that was conducive for me to let go and just be me. If I'm going to do this kind of breath work when I've got like noise and chaos all around me, probably not going to have the same experience.
Mhm.
So, but I have the best experience for that day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, going back to, like, there were five other people in the room with you, and everybody had a different experience. There were visceral reactions of release and purging and letting go. There was laughter, there was tears, there was peace and calm. And that is very true. Like I said at the beginning of the show, like, I had a client that I have been seeing for the last 6 months. I saw her last week for a virtual session. She was so peaceful, so calm. And this week she had chaos that came into her life. And it was very much a purging session yesterday. She needed to let go of the old stories, of the old bullshit that she was told, and allow herself to come in her values, her integrity, her boundaries, and to create the safety within her body and the trust within her body to express those boundaries. So she had to let go of the muck. I love that word that you use. Like, she had to let go of the muck to sift through the muck and to be able to express herself. And so her breathwork session was so different. So it is, your body is letting go what it needs to go when it needs to go.
God, this is incredible. Thank you for sharing everything that you're sharing. And when we do this, my other question for you is like, if I want to improve my health, I'm probably going to be exercising for plus times a week. I'm going to be getting my 10K steps in. I'm going to be doing, talk to me about the cumulative benefits of breath work. How often should I do this? Should do this practice and the long-term benefits of it.
Yeah. First, I want to say, I want to go back to, if I had been doing this breathwork practice when I was an Olympic weightlifter, how different,
Oh, I do want to go there for sure, but yeah.
yeah, how different the outcomes of my lifts would have been. But I didn't know this practice then.
Mhm.
So the question is, how often should you do it? Like, I ask myself, I'll do it weekly. Some people have done it daily for a whole entire year, but it's really what resonates with you. And when I feel the resistance of asking myself, should I do this today, is generally when I need to do it. There's shit that needs to be let go of. So, coming to your question about, like, how does it benefit our physical being? So, there's a book by James Nestor that he talks about how we can breathe in this manner, and we really oxygenate our cells, that we're actually training our body to breathe at like altitude. Like, if you run with through your nose. So I am a chronic mouth breather when I run. That's how I taught myself. And so last year when I was in Colorado, I was running at 8,000 feet through my nose. And I'm like, wow, my system feels so much more alive and so much more like healthy.
Mhm.
So, I also want to drop into, Marsha, that my dad died of COPD, and so when I witnessed him at the end of his life, he had oxygen in his nose, and he was chronically 24/7 breathing out of his mouth. And I would say, Dad, you need to use your nose. You need to use that oxygen. Well, there were some heavy words at the time. And I just recognized that if he, if maybe potentially he breathed through his nose and utilized that diaphragm, how much stronger his lungs would have been. He could have elongated his life. So that's, I mean, that's the beauty in using our whole entire body.
Mhm. I love that explanation. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that and everything that you have. And obviously, we lead ourselves in areas with things that we have found have been a benefit for us, right? Like we share the tools with others that we experience firsthand. And I know a little bit about your journey with breath work and how like vital and important it's been in your life. When were you first introduced to it?
It was over 4 years ago. I was living in San Diego at the time.
Mhm.
And I was living on Coronado Island and I was kind of like stuck and trapped. I was in a toxic relationship that wasn't serving me and I needed to get out. I was really desperate and lonely in this relationship. And there was depression and a whole lot of things. And I just told myself, I'm like, you need to get out of the house. You need to get off the island. You need to go do something different and you need to take care of you. Like, I don't know what it was and I don't know what kept feeding me that, but it did. And so I found this yoga studio in downtown San Diego and fell in love with the yoga studio, fell in love with the community. And on a Sunday evening, they had breath work. And I'm like, okay, you told yourself you're going to do something new. So get your butt signed up. And um, as I was driving to that class, like I said, it was a Sunday evening and I was crossing over the bridge. If you're not familiar with San Diego, downtown in Coronado is connected by this massively huge 90-degree bridge that goes over San Diego Bay. And I was driving there and I felt this visceral pull of my mind saying, ooh, don't go. This doesn't feel good. You don't know about this, but my body, my intuition going, yes, go. And it was so this comparison or this contrast within me. I'm like, really shut up, monkey mind. I'm going to go. And
Mhm.
so I found myself in the yoga studio and I signed myself in and I walked into the studio and I'm like, oh, holy shit, there's 40 other people in this class. What have I gotten myself into? And I mean, I was already committed at that point. So I found an empty mat and I lied down or I sat down next to this beautiful soul who really welcomed me into the space. And we had a lovely conversation. And for the next 45 minutes, I was held in this sacred journey by who are now my mentors, the healing couple. But I felt myself, like you said, after the class, like I was literally levitating off the ground. I'm like, what the hell just happened? It was so trippy. And I just said, I want more. I was not on any psychedelics. I was not on any outside medication. I literally got high on my own supply. I literally got high on my breath. And so as I was leaving the yoga studio to go back home, it was now like 8:30 and it was pitch dark. It was October and it was a full moon. And so I'm a Cancer sign and anything that has to do with water, lakes, ocean, rivers, streams, I just get this energetic buzz. So as I was leaving and going back over the bridge, I could feel the energy coming up from the water underneath the car and into my body. And then there was a massive full moon coming up over Tijuana. And like I still tell this story 4.5 years later, and I have full body goosebumps. Like it is just so visceral within my system that I continue to go back. And then what happened is I was moving to Costa Rica with my ex-husband at the time, and I asked the healing couple, I'm like, hey, I want to do this online. And they're like, no, we don't do this online. Well, then fast forward, then that's when COVID happened and everything was online. So I was like, I'm so grateful. I get to go to Costa Rica and you guys get to facilitate for me. So I continue to do the practice with them holding me in this safe space. And while I was in this toxic relationship, Marsha, I recognized that anytime I would come out of these breathwork sessions feeling so alive and so like the light shining from my chest and just so expansive, I would come back into the relationship and I was just like being squashed by this massive piano or this elephant on me. And I'm like, ugh, like the balloon, the air had just been deflated from the balloon. I'm like, what is going on? And so that's how breathwork has been so transformational for me in my life is because I literally, through the power of my breath, through the power of being held in that safe space and recognizing that I am a beautiful light and soul, that this relationship wasn't serving me. It was very toxic for me. It was very debilitating for my internal light. And so it was after one breathwork session and a big fight that I took myself down to the beach with my chocolate lab Olivia. And I probably walked for 4+ miles. And the only thing that was coming to my soul is I will never abandon myself again. I will never abandon myself again. And it was probably 48 hours later that I packed up everything I owned. I packed up my chocolate lab. And if you know, leaving a foreign country like that with a dog, it takes a lot of things to fall into place
Mhm.
to leave the country. And it was amazing how everything aligned in perfect order to leave the country with her. So I left Costa Rica. I left this beautiful life from the outside looking in that was fabulous, living on the beach and in the jungle and foreign country. And I came back to the States and I just kept telling myself I am never abandon myself again. Now, fast forward, those words have changed because I recognize those words are a little bit of a negative influence into my system is I choose me. I choose me, I choose me, I choose me over and over again when there's decisions that come up. How is this best going to serve me? How is this best going to be in my highest good? So thank you for asking that question. Thank you for holding the space, those of you that listen, because it is very emotional for me. And it's more now an emotional piece where I am so proud of myself for doing that. I am so proud of myself for leaning into the breath, for saying yes to me, and for continually, after 50 years of living in these toxic relationships, of choosing me and living the life that I do.
Oh, thank you for sharing all that because again, it's like a big story of, choosing yourself, resiliency, transformation, what you choosing to say yes or no to, like what you allow in your life. And I think that there's a piece here where age feels like a piece of wisdom in a sense. And I'm only saying this from a standpoint that it's taken me most of my life to know what I say yes and no to. And
Absolutely.
I was yes for everything. Like I was like, yeah, okay, I'll fine, I'll do it. Oh, they want to treat me like crap and they expect more from me. Well, I'll show them I can do it. Like it was such a very toxic cycle that I could see many times over. But I feel like it's hit a point where it's like, no, this is what I choose. And not everyone will understand it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's the thing, like I say the first half of my life, I had a narcissistic mother. So I was raised in this toxic environment and I showed up as the little person that is now being loved by me, but she showed up to please someone else, to make sure that room was safe for her to walk into, to make sure that the other person was happy. And the manipulation and the isolation of being an only child, first of all, and then having to be in that environment created the first half of my life of how I showed up. And then it was that day on the beach where I will no longer abandon myself again. It was like this like big lightning strike that happened. And I'm like, wow, okay, those were lessons. It
Mhm.
was hard. And now I get to say yes to the things that feel good to me. Whereas before it was always, like you said, it was always yes, it was always yes. And and really like not sitting with how does that feel and how does that make me be a better person.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really, really, really powerful. You have been, I think of, what you do, but you've also come from like, so as a master breathwork facilitator now, you've spent a lot of years as an athlete and a lot of
Mhm.
years as and I believe nothing is lost. I believe everything is always teaching us something as we go. And so when you look at the your past experiences, you have like you competed in Ironmans, triathlons, marathons, Olympic weightlifting. And we have great conversations because that's what my husband's
Yep.
in, and getting ready for worlds. So it's always interesting to listen and be connected to somebody else who also has been pursuing really big goals, like really, really big goals. How, when you look back and you think of the journey that you've come on, how can you look at and like how do you address your younger self and how do you appreciate the challenges and things that she has come through? Because now you're in such a, I see you in a little bit of a softer era, which I think I say softer as in strength for people who are like I think it's actually this beautiful piece of softness and knowing also like noticing the softness of breath work, but there's a lot of power in breath work too. So
Yeah.
I'm just curious, when you look back at like your journey, and how do you see and appreciate your younger self and all the things that she did to work so hard to get you where you are now?
Yeah, there's such a duality to both of that, Marsha. Sitting with her, so she started her athletic career about 26 years old, and she was doing it for so many reasons that were outside of herself. She wanted that parent to recognize her. She wanted that parent to show her that she was worthy enough, that she was lovable enough. And it really came out in high achieving athletics, where she trained so much and so hard. And that's the beauty of that dedication of how hard I worked and how hard that she fought for those goals, because I recognized, like, there was a lot of visualization, there was a lot of, breathing within that, there was a lot of pushing past the fear, and it was just a different mentality when I did it,
Mm.
because I had a goal to get to Ironman Hawaii, the world championship, and so that was a visceral or a physical goal. And so she did so much to achieve that goal that now as I look back and I'm like, wow, I'm so proud of you. I am so proud of how hard you worked. And I love you. I see you. I witness you and you are worthy just as you are. And I'm so proud of how far you took yourself into that. And that is the lesson as the 55-year-old me gets to go back and gets to love on her because she was doing it for the right reasons also.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing that, because that shows this level. That's a really big question. And I also know it shows a level of healing. I do think it comes to a point, it's interesting because I heard today on a podcast, it was Brendan Burchard, and it really hit me. And he said, everybody wants that back to the future moment. They want to go back to a time where they could have made a different decision, where they could have and thinking that that one decision was going to change the trajectory of everything else. And if you realize that it's just one decision, then make that decision today, because
Mhm.
make the same decision today and watch things unfold and change.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everything we've walked through has built so much strength within us that we get to do the work that we do and share these tools with others. And I'm assuming because the work of breathwork has been so powerful and empowering for you, is why you are feeling so dropped in to share that with others.
Absolutely. Like I don't know what happens. I don't know what comes through. I don't know. All I do know is that I see this, like when I was facilitating for you, I see this light that is transmuting literally through me. So if you can't see me, so my hand's up above my head and this light is coming from above and in through and out of my heart into the space or into the Zoom room. I mean, I'm just this conduit. And
Mhm.
the words I look back and I'm like, wow, where did those words come from? And I don't question them anymore. It's just literally, I'm hearing something that is offering to be said to you. Does it land at the time or does it not? Do you take away the lesson 48 hours later or a week later? But it's just this gift that I know that I'm here to do and to be of this light and to be of service and to allow other women to know, like, no matter what age you are, there is an opportunity to change your trajectory and an opportunity to choose you. And so that is my mission and my purpose is to hold space for as many people as I possibly can in breath work.
I love that. It's so interesting too, because again, you've got two women here in their 50s who are talking about, w- learning how to choose you, learning how to choose yourself. And I had a client recently talk about her book and what she's doing, and how she said, I really hope to help parents with kids under 10 years old to know that they can do this.
Mhm.
And she said, because these are the parents that need it the most. I said, actually, everybody needs it. Trust me on that, because there's so many women who get to this age and they haven't thought about themselves in decades, like
Mhm.
decades. It's just they
Mhm.
didn't forget putting themselves first. They weren't even on the list.
Yeah.
And so this is a very new language to be able to encourage more and more women, and not just women, but women, men, to be able to put themselves in their own self first so that they can care for themselves, which will then only spill out into all the work that they do.
Yeah. I really feel, Marcia, that we're in this generation. you and I are in this generation of like big space holding for the transformation, like the layer of the peeling, like the ripping off of the band-aid
Mhm.
has really begun with us.
Mhm.
Like we're able to see how this ripple effect of that band-aid that we're ripping off gets to be transmuted into generations after us.
Mhm.
And to, I mean, I have friends in their 40s and in their 30s and in their 20s, and I'm like, wow, like if I knew what you knew when you're 20s, life would be so different.
Mhm.
But yet, like, I mean, we're our parents, my parents, I can speak of my parents, like there was that program that they had to go to a 9 to 5, they had to raise the kids, they had to have the house and the white picket fence, and everything was happy. And then at 5 years old, my world's shattered apart. My parents got divorced, but yet there was always that anger and that resentment in that generation, because like there was just so much turmoil and nobody knew how to deal with it. Nobody knew how to release it and let it go. So I feel like the work that you and I are doing as space holders for other people, that in our 50s, in our 60s, in our 70s, we still can change. We can still be that ripple effect. And so it's just such a beautiful, like huge picture vision.
Mm. Yeah, goosebumps. I love this. I love this.
Yeah.
So if people are listening to this and they're like, okay, I want to experience breath work, how do they do that with you? What does that look like?
So if you're in a different place than I am, most generally everybody
Yep.
is, because I travel full time in my van.
Mhm.
I am a nomad. I hold breathwork sessions virtually and also in person. So I'm going this weekend to a van meetup on the Pacific side of Oregon, and holding space for van lifers, which is so beautiful to do. But virtually in a group session, I hold once a month group sessions. I hold private sessions virtually. And then if you're in the area, I am coming up to Vancouver Island to hold a breathwork session at a yoga studio as a pop-up event. So, I mean, I've tried to be as many places as possible to be able to spread this magical gift.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I will make sure everything is in the show notes so they can connect with you. Where are the best places to connect, follow, and learn more about the work that you do?
I am on Instagram under Victoria Lee Star. So it's LeeStarr. I'm on Facebook under the same name, and my website's Victoria Lee Star also. I
Mhm.
also have a podcast, Raw and Radiant, where I talk a lot about, you have been on my podcast also, where we talk about a lot of these transformations at any age of life, and that we get to be this light, this being, and this conduit of beauty and radiance. And showing up raw. So I'm on YouTube too. So yeah, I'm everywhere.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I'm so grateful that I got to have this conversation with you, that we got to connect in person. I got to experience your magic through breath work personally. And it really did open my eyes as to like I want the depth of it. It's that work that I love. So I'm so grateful that you're here and that we've connected and I've been able to share you with my listeners and audience. And I have one more question for you. It is,
Okay.
what lesson in life are you most grateful for?
What lesson in life am I most grateful for? I want to say the first thing that came to me is the lessons that I learn every single day. Like I'm most grateful for those lessons that I get to learn every single day, because if I'm not learning, like, am I growing? Am I evolving? So each day is a new lesson to learn.
Mhm. Even when we don't like the lessons?
Especially so.
I had to ask. I knew the answer, but I knew there'd be somebody who'd be like, "What?" It's true. Like
Yeah.
we don't necessarily like the lessons at the time, but we can look back, as you just did so beautifully. Like we look back to those younger versions of ourselves. Without learning those lessons, we wouldn't be where we are today either. So they do serve a purpose and are very valuable as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Marsha, for having me. I'm so excited. I appreciate you. You are the heart and soul of living raw and radiant. Take this energy, this courage, and infuse it into every moment of your life. Remember, you have the permission to choose you. I invite you to stay connected, keep shining your light, and continue to embody the essence of living raw and radiant. Together, we are igniting a movement of empowerment, authenticity, and soulful living. Until next time, my friends, keep living your soul's desires.